Right, I think we need an antidote to that, so I've got 25 slides of 3604. Lots more. Just kidding. Right. So who am I? You've heard a little bit about it. So I'm a professional director, and I want to thank John Tanner, really, for my current role. He used to work with me. And then what I discovered was that he was rather prescient in inviting me to speak to this, because this was before the minister knew that I was going to be the chair of Scion, before I knew, and definitely before Julian Elder knew. So thank you, John, and I'll keep you on. So I'm chair of brands in Scion. I have a few other roles, some of which are quite challenging at the moment, and you'll appreciate that in a moment. I am a director of NIWA and Dairy NZ. They're the kind of okay ones right now. And then I've got Massey University and Antarctica, New Zealand, just saying. So those are some of the challenges of being a director. I'm also a seismologist, and my professional backing, and I have a PhD from Cambridge University, which has absolutely no earthquakes whatsoever, but actually I studied earthquakes when I was there, and so my specialty really is very large earthquakes, and or it was, because I had to get a day job because there are not many of them. So I can bore a lot of people about earthquakes if they want. But what I wanted to talk about today was actually beauty and resilience. And because I think we've got some rather banal goals of 2 billion trees and 100,000 houses, but if they're not done with beauty and resilience, then we've kind of lost the plot. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about some recent influences and things that I'm thinking about myself as a director. And then also I want to touch on 4 themes that are relevant to today that I'm seeing. So first of all, I've got to figure this out, don't I? Next. First of all, these are some of the projects that I care about. And when I started to add things up, on the boards that I'm on, we've got around $500 million in planning of major projects. Those include, and there's a picture there of Greta Point. For those of you who fly in and out of Wellington, this is my personal opinion, I have to say. One of the ugliest buildings in Wellington is there, and it's the NIWA building. And we are about to launch upon a much more inspiring and modern building. Up on the right, on the top right, is Brands, our recent building, and we're also in the process of upgrading that, and our fire lab. So I know some people here care about fire labs a great deal, so talk to Shalidra, she's down here. And then the old museum building, well, Massey University is reclaiming that and is going to turn it into a creative space for our creative people in Wellington. And then last but not least, there's Scott Base. And over the next 10 years, we're going to be completely rebuilding Scott Base. Quite a challenge, I have to say, that one, for lots of reasons. But so directors have to think about not only the money that they're spending, which is, over $500 million across all my boards, but actually future-proofing it for the organisation and the people. So that's projects I care about. Some projects I've learnt from here, and I know there are some people who know quite a bit about these. I care particularly about building resilience, and so I chaired the inquiry into the statistics house performance, and also was a member of the inquiry into the building collapse in Christchurch CBD buildings. So that's taught me a bunch of things. First of all, I've learnt that engineers are people too. Not everybody agrees with that, but I just put it out there, I do. One of the wonderful things I learned is that New Zealand, because we have very low levels of corruption, we build the stuff that we say we're going to build. Now, this is an extraordinary concept in some countries, but actually, the deaths from earthquakes, I'm sorry to be down at this time of night, actually are incredibly low in New Zealand for a very reason. We have well-designed buildings and close to zero corruption. That matters. The other thing I've learned is the complexity in modern design has risks. And I have to say, when we get to 54 design guides and everything else, I think you guys are amazing getting your heads around all those things for a start. So the only thing I'd fly a flag for is don't make it too complicated. And then lastly, the thing I learnt particularly from these was that engineers have a swear word, and it starts with S, and it's safe. So they don't like the word safe. I mean, in fact, I said to a bunch of the guys on the first inquiry, and we were talking about not CTV building, but another building, and I said, come on, guys, like, let's understand, so we can explain why this building collapsed, but why did the one next to it not collapse when it was built to very similar design? And there's one famous Wellington-based engineer who's very droll, said, well, we can't tell you that. I said, oh, come on, guys. Like, if you're walking down Featherston Street, what do you look for in these buildings? What are you going, ooh, I want to step away from that one? And there's a long silence, and this guy said, we don't walk down Featherston Street. Just saying. So there's a tip for Wellington visits. So 4 things that I think really matter, and I've been observing in a number of ways. First of all, inspiring people matters, and we have seen there's masses of beauty out there on show, and so there ought to be. Now, this is some beauty that I've experienced recently. The Tamazawa Imperial Residence Villas in Nikko in Japan. I was visiting there and by accident came across this extraordinary building, 106 rooms, all of the detailing like that. So beautiful. And the building on the left is mine, which is a Fritz Eisenhofer house from 1970. Every time I go into that room, it totally lights my fires. It inspires me. And all his brilliant ceiling profiles, I tell you, I've had painters going, we could put a slap of white on that one, or fix that. So I've had to defend them from various assaults from painters over the years. But great design and beauty matters in all of our lives. The second thing that matters is resilience. And on the top right hand is one of the downsides of a magnitude 6.6 earthquake in Iran in 2003, BAM. 26,000 people were killed in that earthquake. You can see why. 30,000 people were injured. New Zealand learnt this lesson very early, and that's that lovely quote. I don't know if you can read it, but basically this was a letter to the editor from WMF of Lower Wakefield in 1865, and basically said, build single-storied wooden buildings for residences. Good starting advice. We've moved on a wee bit since then, but it matters. Resilience matters. And then on the right-hand side is that glorious Scott's Hut at Cape Evans. Anyone been there? Really? Well, it's an amazing building. I've been there a few times, and you walk inside this little low building on the outside, and you can still smell the horses. You can literally still smell them, and because they used horses for the last expedition. The seal blubber is still there to fuel the fire. That building is magnificent, and inside, it's from 1910 when Scott left, is still there, still intact. Moving on, I'd like to announce a winner of the Future Timber Design Awards. This is the magnificent Scion Innovation Hub, which is about to start going up. So, Julian, you'll have to be up here in a couple of years' time to pick up an award for that, I'm sure. Maybe we won't be able to sponsor it then. But the point about this building in Rotorua is that it's going to be showcasing great timber design and great new products from the construction sector. So the point here is that buildings, as you all know really in this room, speaking to the converted, is buildings like this transform lives. The last thing that really matters, and we've heard a bit about it here in terms of construction design, but that is actually innovation matters. Now, there's 3 examples here, and they are all Scion examples, so you'll have to excuse my bias here at the moment, but we're looking here at new bio-based adhesives that address environmental concerns around formaldehyde. We've got to keep doing this stuff, pushing the boundary. Fully coloured timber. I haven't seen anything of this colour out there, and hopefully we won't, but this is an aspiration. So you cut that wood, it's the same colour all the way through. And then finally, and I guess my favourite at some level is this 3D printing filament down the bottom there, which is 10% wood, but actually 100% bio-based and compostable plastics in effect. So we've got to keep pushing the boundaries on the products that come from trees, not just the buildings. So we've got some challenges. We truly have some challenges. We've got to get more than just 2 billion trees planted, because if we plant 2 billion trees, they'll end up going off the wharf. And John Ryder was telling me off the other day about there not being enough quality product for pulp going offshore. So I hope that's all fast rotation pulp grade. But anyway, just saying. And then up on the right-hand side, there are a couple of great examples of where we've got to tap into different sources. So there's the Totara work in Northland going on, and then the fantastic example of the Minganui nursery. I don't know if anybody here from Minganui? No. Yeah, really? Well done. Every weekend. Do you? Okay, well, you know what's going on there, which is actually a transformation of 300 people left in this town, and actually being transformed by the opportunity to work in the nurseries. And it's not just Pinus radiata, it's multiple species. So fantastic initiative by Ngāti Whare and others. Finally, I do want to say we do need to get more than 10,000 boxes, again, slightly speaking to the converted. But I want to pay huge tribute to Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei there. They're not just building standalone houses or even MDH-type buildings. What they are the building is the kind of environments that people want to live in that is right for them, and I think that's the challenge for all of us. It's not just putting up more boxes efficiently, it's actually creating the places where people want to live. And the Brands Board recently met in Queenstown, and we met a lot of the developers around there, and one of the things they were saying was the challenge is huge houses, and then standalone houses, not unlike those in the right-hand side, but actually what was really needed there was medium-density housing close to the city, close to the creative environment that a lot of young people in particular want to be in. So there's challenges for us. I certainly don't have the solution, but I think that you guys do, because one of the most inspiring buildings I've seen that is both beautiful, clearly resilient, and actually creates an environment for people to do the kind of things they want to do is the winner last year with the Cathedral Grammar Junior School. And I love that quote from Winston Churchill. I nearly said Peters. Oops. We shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. And I think that's the challenge for us, particularly with the 100,000 homes. So thank you very much.